So we're up to lesson 16 and we're going to start to look at our toolbars. And this is actually where the lessons start to get really interesting for me, because I can finally start to talk you through a whole project. We're going to import a project from AutoCAD, a 2D plan that's just going to give us a layout to start working off. And this is where I can start to actually explain to you how I use Wysiwyg in my practice, which is what I think is going to be the thing that's most interesting for these tutorials. It's not just that I'm teaching how to use Wysiwyg, because actually loads of people can teach you that. There's loads of experts. People that know much more than I do about Wysiwyg are out there, particularly from Wysiwyg themselves. What I'm giving you is just my experience of having made lots of projects in Wysiwyg. So I can finally start to talk you through some of the little tips and tricks that I use in my work. Now I'm going to be using two programs throughout the next few chapters when I'm explaining this to you. One is AutoCAD and one is 3D Studio Max. They both have equivalents. You could be using Vectorworks, you could use Maya for 3D, you could use Blender 3D or SketchUp. These are the two tools that I use, mainly because I started off my career in architecture and I learned AutoCAD there and became a bit of a wizard at AutoCAD, so I'm just quite comfortable with it. Although I'm very happy moving on from it now. It's a very old tool and there's much better tools out there, but AutoCAD is still fairly much the standard for drawing, unfortunately, in the architectural world. 3D Max is very compatible with AutoCAD, much more than all the other Autodesk products. But I would also recommend looking at Vectorworks. It's very much the lighting industry standard now for drawing and 3D modeling. But you can do a lot more with 3D Max with 3D drawings. So we're going to have a very, very little look at both of those programs. But I'm going to do a completely different series on 3D Max and how we can draw for the theatre industry in that software. So I'm not going to cover it in detail here. I'm just going to show you what's important to know about Wysiwyg when you're building a 3D model in 3D Max. I'd also like to stress at this point that you will notice when I bring these programs in that I've got the student editions of both those programs. I am a student, I'm doing a PhD, I'm also an educator working at a university, so I'm entitled to have these programs as student versions. I'm not using them for commercial purposes. I do have commercial licenses. I lease them when I'm working on a project. So please don't start turning me into Autodesk and saying that I don't have commercial licenses, not using them. I do, but I also have student licenses, and that's what I have to have on this computer that I'm using for doing all my teaching. So yeah, there's a logic there, right? So you will see the student version. There's no difference in terms of how the software works. It's just that there's limitations on what I'm allowed to use it for. Fortunately, I'm allowed to use it for teaching. So I'll be showing you lots of my projects in those two programs. So let's dive right in and let's have a look at Jesus Christ Superstar and how it looks like in CAD. So I'm actually going to just delete everything on this file because we don't need it now. It's all going to get in the way. I've still got my layers loaded in here, which is dimensions. And we're going to look at AutoCAD. So I'm just going to drag AutoCAD over. I've already got the ground plan loaded up. Oh, and hopefully if I drag it in here, you'll see it. So if you're interested, I've got 4 monitors on this computer. It's a big quad monitor that can be 4K or it can be 4 HD monitors, which I find really useful. So you'll often see me dragging things in from left, right, above and all different directions. I can't live without multiple monitors. So this is AutoCAD, as I said, the student version, not using this for commercial purposes. I have a commercial license on another computer. So, very simple. That's the Churchill Theatre ground plan. That there is a 4-stage that comes up and down. It makes the orchestra pit in certain productions, but in this one it's a 4-stage that's risen up to stage level. We have a line here which denotes the ends of the first row, which is really useful if you want to do some sightline planning. So if I type in Excel in CAD, it gives me a construction line, and I can, F8 to turn off Ortho mode, I can then check to see what the sight lines are on those borders. So I can look here, say, okay, slightly into the wings there. This is actually the best I could do with the width of this stage. It's such a wide stage and the audience are so wide that you always have to sacrifice the ends of the first row for good sight lines. But see, everything's been thought through very carefully in this. I did all the drawings. I planned all the size of the legs, the borders, and you can see the scenery there. The scenery is actually a 3D model, which if I hold down Shift and middle mouse button, it takes a little while because CAD's a bit funny, but there you can see a 3D model, which is really handy because it means that when we import this into Wysiwyg, we'll have a 3D model. I don't actually want a 3D model though, because I'm going to import another one from 3D Max, which I'm going to drag in now. So this is 3D Studio Max. It's also an Autodesk product from the Autodesk suite. That's our 2D plan. Looks exactly the same, and this is how it looks in 3D Max. And I've obviously put more things in here. I put borders and a proscenium arch. You can see that 4-stage there, and that's our scenery. The scenery is quite clever. It's made by a company called Stage Sets in collaboration with Stage Electrics. It's available for hire for amateur artist groups. Each of these is a LED panel, which is a bit of fun, a bit cheesy actually for me, but the director insisted. And then this here is a set of stairs that splits down the middle. You just see the line, and it's very difficult to do just as I'm dragging things, but you can sort of see the idea is that will split down the middle and it opens like this. There's some of the stuff behind, so that you can have an entrance and the door behind. So that's the scenery anyway. There's not much more to it than that. Nice and simple for lots of different venues it might go to. So we can come back to the 3D Max model later when we put this into AutoCAD, into Wysiwyg. We can stay with the AutoCAD model for the moment. The important thing here is that I've done all my planning in here. All the drawings have been done already. I just find it a lot easier. You can do everything I've done here in Wysiwyg with the tools I've just shown you. We can go into more detail about labelling the text and things. We'll do that as we go. It's just easier for me if I start with something that's a real project, and we can adapt and modify as we go. I've already put in all of my hanging plot down the sides, so we can get to that later. I've got all my weight loadings to the bars. It's quite a big venue. It's got 50 bars, all counterweights. And I've even shown in here my speaker positions and boom positions, and these are the dip traps for the lights. So there you go, that's the CAD plan. So what I'm going to do is just drag that out of the way. I don't need that again. I've drawn that all already. I have my blank Wysiwyg plan. Now bear in mind that there's only two things in the layers window at the moment, dimensions and main. I'm going to bring in the CAD plan by going up to File, Merge, and I'm going to jump out. I'm going to grey this all out later so we don't see it, because I don't want you seeing all my files. But if I go to my Jesus Christ Superstar folder, have it in Set, and then JCS Ground Plan, which is the file we've got open. I'm going to click Open. Now, bring you back, we can see the first thing it does is asking you to confirm how you want to merge it. Do you want to select the base point as a mouse or use 000 as base point? 000 is absolutely crucial. It drives me mad. The number of productions I work on, professional set designers and draftsmen who do not draw 3D drawings on the base point. They draw them away from their ground plan. And I think the reason they do that is that they have a nice 2D ground plan that's centered around 000. And then they draw the 3D model off to the side because they think that's more convenient. And when they give it to me, it's never in the right place and I can never get it lined up. 0 refers to the X, Y and Z coordinates, and it's a common base point that all drawings should share. And every venue has one. It's usually, and not always, but usually the center line of the drawing, so it's like on the 0 here, against the back of the curtain, the iron curtain, or the front of the stage if it hasn't got one. That's the commonly held view on where the UCS, Universal Coordinate System, should be based, which is where 000 is. So I would always import things 000 because you've got nothing to lose by doing that, and hopefully it'll be in the right place. And it means if you're moving things from different programs or you need to update something, it will go in exactly the right place every time. So I click OK. Now it's going to ask me to define my content. Now I always ignore this. There's nothing really here I need to do. I want to import everything. There are options to do things to the blocks, which I'll come to later when I import a CAD file. I'm going to click Next. It's going to process it a little bit, and now it asks me what units I've drawn it in. Now that really is up to you. If I just drag my CAD file back again, if you want to check in CAD, type in units, enter, and it brings up, unless I've changed it recently, or it's stuck it on this screen here, it tells you what it's set to. So it says here inches, that's the insertion scale, so ignore that. Lighting's at international, length's decimal, the precision's at 00. If we wanted to change anything, it'd probably be millimeters here. So the insertion scale isn't the scale that the drawing's at, I should stress. It's if you wanted to import something in, you say what you want that scale to come in from. So if it was coming from another file that was in inches, you want to say that to inches. I happen to know this drawing is all set to millimeters. I drew it all in millimeters. If I just do a measurement, DI from measure, I'll go across the stage here. It's 18,280 millimeters across the black box, which is the sides of the stage, not the proscenium. I know that's correct, so I know it's 18,280 would be the right measurement. If it was something odd like 280. I know that it's probably been done in I don't know what inches, feet. You can usually tell that scales off because it's just a really odd number. So I'm going to change this to millimeters because I know it's drawn in millimeters. And then it tells you about all the layers you've got in that drawing. So all my layers are labelled here. There's lots of them. They've come from the original 3D model. So the person that sent me the 3D model, they created their own layers. I've created my own layers. So I think that's set and stage. They're mine because it'd be simple. All of this was quite complicated labelling from the people before. So this gets quite frustrating in my layer system because I can't really control it. It just all gets a bit messy. So in the previous chapter I was explaining how we can use our layer system and how we can group objects in layers. So what I'll actually do, I'll select all of these and I'll add a prefix. So the prefix is really handy just to keep it all organised. So I'm going to say S underscore for the prefix. And in fact what I might do is S underscore V1 underscore. So that's saying it's the stage drawings version 1. And if I need to update my CAD plan and re-import it, I can do it as stage underscore version 2, and I can turn off all of V1 but leave them there. So it'd be really easy for me to flip between different versions, which makes it easy to see what's changed. I can even set V1 to be like a light grey colour and V2 to be a white, so you can see the greyed out version underneath the white version. One of my biggest bugbears is changes. Obviously they happen. I can't predict when they're going to happen, but what I can do is try to create methods that make it easy to identify them. Sometimes it's almost easy just to start from scratch with a drawing that's changed. Sometimes the drawings changes are so minute you can miss them. So having little processes like this to help you control changes just makes it easier to spot mistakes. So click OK. So now all the layers, I'm going to change the name to S underscore V1. Click next. Now it gives you an option to convert blocks into objects, and it's automatically going to add all these blocks it's found to the library. When we get to the next chapter we're going to look at lighting. I'm going to show you how this can be really useful, because if you've got a block for a light you can actually convert it into a fixture type. So if you had a Parcam block you can turn it into a Parcam fixture. I don't use this a lot actually because it does something I don't like, which creates separate pipes. If you can't see a light relative to the pipe, relative to the light next to it, it doesn't create one pipe, it creates a pipe for every single fixture, which is really frustrating in a drawing, but we'll come to that later when we get to lighting. For now this is absolutely fine for the scenery. So we click finish. Gives it a moment. It's going to tell you, right, so it's imported 66 layers. There's 500 items being created, library items, which is quite important because we want to know how many objects we have overall in our scene. We're allowed 5,000 objects is what Wysiwyg tells us. I actually prefer to work in terms of faces or polygons. We want about the polygon budget normally is around about 200,000 to 300,000 polygons, but this is me working in quite reserved numbers. I used to use 7 or 8 years ago where graphics cards were a lot weaker, and because Wysiwyg was still on a 32-bit architecture, I stuck with that, and now it's release 43. I haven't really dared try pushing it much further than that in a professional production, but really 500,000 polygons is about all you want. So you see this isn't very many because a 2D drawing doesn't have many faces. When we get to importing 3D models, if you have something like a tree or an organic object with maybe a brick texture or something that's rendered in 3D, you'll start to see hundreds of thousands of polygons coming in one object, and that's when you've got to be really careful. So it's always good just to check this log as it comes in. So click OK just to confirm that. About to place objects on layers which are off or not editable. Press OK to put the objects on the current layers or cancel, which is absolutely fine. All it means is that I don't have the layers here at the moment. There are layers that have been imported by the drawing which are off, and we're going to be putting some of the objects from the CAD drawing on those objects. That's fine. Basically means if a layer is off in AutoCAD, it will be off in Wysiwyg and there'll be an object on it. So click OK. And there it is. There's my whole drawing. So it's imported all those layers, all with the prefix before, S underscore V1 underscore. When you import something, you get a moment to change it. Everything selected has just been imported. It's actually very hard to get this option back again later. You have to go and select everything one at a time. So if you have a file with lots of objects in it, this could be your last chance to right click and go to properties and make a change if you need to. There's nothing I actually need to do to this at the moment because I've already labelled on my layers, but sometimes I'll import something, and the first thing I'll do is go and just stick it on its own layer. So you do that by going to General, and then you click on the layer you want it to be applied to, click Apply and OK, and it will move everything that's selected onto that layer. I might also want to change a label or change the appearance of it. I might want to make it all grey so we can ignore the layer colour. I can select individual lines, or also all of the lines, all the splines. In this drawing it's not relevant, but sometimes when you're importing things that's quite useful. So I'm just going to cancel that. So when I'm happy, I just deselect or click somewhere in the blank area just to deselect it. I've got my drawing. All the lines are imported, all the colours, all the labels. And the next thing I'll do is just grab all these layers by Shift Select. So I'll use my left click, use my mouse button to wheel up and down. Shift Select up and top and bottom, and then comes this button here, New Group, and I'm going to stick that into S underscore version 1 underscore stage plan. So that's my group for my first stage plan. So that's a nice group. So if I had more versions of that, I might have a few. My versions 2, 3, 4, 5. I can turn them on and off as a group. I can make them frozen, so some objects can't be edited. I now can't. Oh, shouldn't let me do that. Shouldn't be able to touch anything. Some of these might have gone into a different layer. Aha. So if I want to know what layer it is, if I hover my mouse over it, so that's gone to layer main. So in my CAD file, they must have been a different layer. That's interesting. So if I turn off my main layer, so at the moment this has got a green tick next to it, which means it's my current layer. I can't turn it off when it's the main layer. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it working layer. So it's going to go there, make that my main layer, and now I can turn off my main layer there. Like there, all my lines are turned off. So what I could do, if I want to move all those onto put them in my group, I want to put those into probably something that says bars. I might put it in S version 1 main, that's where it should be, rather than the main here. So I'm going to turn off my entire group, all those layers turned off in one go. So all of those are turned off now. So all that's left is stuff that is on this main layer, which should have been in another layer. So I'm just going to click and drag all of this. Incidentally, I've explained this before, but if you click and drag left to right, it will only select things that are inside the box. So you see I can't select all those lines because I haven't got all of them. I have to go right around the outside. If I go right to left, it'll select anything that the lines or the marquee tool is touching. So I tend to go that way if I want to select everything. Right to left. Right click, properties. Wait for my little box to load up. Go to general, and I'm just going to click on my group, S version 1 main, down there, and click apply or OK. If you click apply, it applies it without closing the box. If you click OK, it applies it and closes the box. Same difference. So now there's nothing on main. Just keeps it all nice and neat, and we can turn this back on again, and we put it back. But we could, if we wanted to, go down to S version 1 main and just turn those off. There you go. So this is where layers are really useful if you get it all organised nicely. So we've got all our symbols here. So we're going to come to all these in the next lesson. We're going to start looking at how we can manipulate these and edit these. I'm just going to go through the toolbar a little bit more while we're here. So you saw me go to File, Merge. I want to talk about insertables quickly. An insertable is a group of objects you can make your own. So if I go to Insert, it will take me to a load of things that already exist. So these are things that Wysiwyg's deemed a useful set of insertables. So it's a collection of drawing elements that are all grouped together. So as an example, I may decide, let's pick something, I may want to make this staircase here an insertable. So I'm going to select it, click here, make it editable. So I've selected that, and I might select one on the other side, so there's two objects connected. So I've got those both selected. I held down Control rather than Shift to select, and I'll go to File, Insertables, Create. I'll give it a name, call it Stairs, use 000 as a base point, always, in my opinion, and click OK. And now it's creating insertable. Now if I click off, let's move out of the way. I'm going to go File, Insertables, Insert, and we should see Stairs, the one I was made. Type, user defined, click use 0 as a base point. Actually this time, just to show you, I'm going to go with select base point with a mouse, otherwise it's going to overlay perfectly with the old ones. Click Add, and you can see I've got these two little things here that become the stairs. So I'll just click and place them there. And that's a way of quickly inserting things. So if you've got an object in a plan that you use a lot, we can create insertables. And you can save those into your Wysiwyg folder. Wysiwyg has like a template folder that you can save to. And create a library that you can take with you. So as you install new versions, you can copy that folder across into a new release, or take it with you to different computers or on different projects. So you can have a collection of all your favourite objects. So at the Royal Opera House, I had a very large collection of all my standard light fixtures. So we had like 4K HMIs on auto yokes, or 6 lamp bars of par cans and ACL bars and things. So all the things that we used to use all the time that got used regularly on different shows but always in the same configuration, I made those all insertables, and I just moved them across from different releases every time a new release came out, and moved them to different computers so we could just easily insert them. It already had all the patching included and any channeling, because they were standard across all productions. You may notice some other objects here that have appeared since I created this drawing. They came in because the layers were off originally in CAD, so we didn't see them, but we can get rid of those later. You just hover your mouse over it, tell you what layer they are, we can turn those off. So this is layer S_V1_dims for dimensions. So just so you know that. I'm going to quickly look at the edit menu as well. Everything's greyed out at the moment because I've got nothing selected, but if I select, say, this truss, go to the edit menu, I get options for rotating, moving. Rotating place, there's a difference here. If you rotate something, you'll rotate it round the point. If I select it and do rotate in place, it will select it around its central point. So I didn't click to select where the center of it was. Not so useful. I prefer rotate in place. Scale, if you want to make something bigger or smaller, you'll type in the scale. So I've selected it. I'm going to choose a scale of 5. Let's make it 5 times as big. Control Z to undo. And mirror we did earlier, so you saw that. Bring to the front, center to the back, just like it is in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or any sort of programs you use where there's an order. So if you want something to sit on top of something else, particularly useful when you've got objects that sit over the top of each other. So if I want to select, say, that blue line, but the grey line's on top of it, you could select it and just bring it to the front and it'll get priority. Another thing you can do, if you've got loads of objects on top of each other, which happens a lot, if you hold down Shift when you're selecting, it will cycle. You see it says cycle selection 1 of 2, 2 of 2, just cycles between them. It'd be really useful if it told you what it was you were seeing when you were selecting them, because if you've got loads of text on top of each other, it's really hard to differentiate what they are when you're selecting. I did also want to talk about text quickly, because you can see there's quite a lot here. When you import it from CAD, you can just double click on it. Oh, sorry, light. Yep, there you go, double click. Text label. You can do the same from both right clicking and going to properties like everything else, and then here we can change that to test. And we've got options here to change the fonts. So click OK, there we go. Let's change it to a different colour as well. Undo that, Control Z. If we want to create our own text labels, there's a text tool there. So text label gives us a very similar set of options. Create a test. Click OK. I'm not going to go into all the details here, you can play with those, but click and place that as an object, and it's gone into the layer, working layer, because that's what I've got selected at the moment. So we're going to leave that there. That's been quite a long lesson, and I want to get on to manipulating objects in the CAD view in a bit more detail in the next lesson.